Hey everybody, welcome back to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Friday for a discussion of the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. We've got a bit of a different episode this week for you. I'm one of your hosts today, Alex Van Aken, and we are going to be diving into our top 10 games of 2025. If you listen to our Thanksgiving episode, similar format here. We're going to be individual editors from Game Informer sat down to record their top 10 games. And they want to share it here with our podcast audience. So we're going to be going one at a time. We'll start each of us with our 10th favorite game and go down to our number one favorite pick. And I hope this episode's a great way for you to figure out something new to play. The holidays are obviously here. Whether you're celebrating or not, I think that this episode will be a great way for you to get some recommendations for things to add to your wish list, for things to check out if you do have a break for the holidays, or maybe it's just sometimes nice to see that other people like the thing that you like. So that's what this is. And I think I just want to say really quick, if you enjoy this episode, please consider picking up a Game Informer magazine print subscription. It's the best way to keep the lights on. It's the best way to support the show. And if you want to do that, head over to GameInformer.com/subscribe, and that'll get you everything you need to know. I believe there's a discount running currently for our print subscription, which gets you 10 issues a year delivered to your mailbox. And we also have it comes with a digital subscription, which is sold separately for a cheaper price if you'd like to just go that route, if you're an international user. And also don't forget, we are now on newsstands. So if you're in the States, you can go to places like Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, GameStop, and you can buy our magazine there. The current issue that is on newsstands is the Dragon Quest VII Reimagined issue. And then in early to mid-January, the World of Warcraft Midnight cover story that I wrote is going to be going up. And that'll be sent to mailboxes and newsstands. And I'd say early to mid-January is the target date. So stay tuned to that. I just want to say also, if you've been having issues with getting your issues for whatever reason, I do want to say that the Outer Worlds 2 issue, if you're missing that one, that was greatly affected by the government shutdown. USPS told us that directly. So apologies if you had any issues with that issue. And also, if you are signing up for the first time, it'll take 6 to 8 weeks to get your first issue. There's like a weird something to do with like all the admin stuff that goes into adding you into our batches. There's usually a bit of a delay between the time you sign up and the time you get your first issue, and then after that it'll smooth out. So we appreciate everybody's patience. If you have any issues with your orders, please email us, support@gameinformer.com. That's the best way to reach out to us. But without further ado, let's get into the episode, starting with my number 10 favorite game of the year. This is a game that actually came onto my list pretty late, honestly. But when I played it, it kind of blew me away. And that game is Motion Wreck. It is a puzzle game. I'm pulling up the Steam page so I can shout out the developer. It's by Handsome and published by Playism. And it's a puzzle game where it's brilliant. You record your movements. So first of all, it's nearly 1-bit. There is some color in it, but for the most part, it's a 1-bit pixel art game. So black and white. They use red and green as well later on for the purposes of communicating its main mechanic, which is you're standing still, you press the record button, and any movements you make, whether you jump up or you go underneath of a platform to go lower or just walk straight across, you can then store that recording, walk somewhere else, and then play back that recording, and your actions will play back from even though you are no longer where you used to be, your character will still follow those motions. And so it's a really fun puzzle game that is all about figuring out how to bypass, spikes and lasers, using the environment to support your goal of kind of, moving around in interesting ways to solve these puzzles. It's really, really great. I really recommend it. It's, I think it's only $8 as well. It's called Motion Wreck. And if you're a fan of, what was that game? Gato Roboto or Minute, very similar art style. It's also short and sweet. The pixel artist is M7 Kenji. The composer is Kyohei Fujita, and the developer is Shoma. And together they are Handsome, and that is spelled SUM, like the sum of its parts. But yeah, Motion Wreck is my number 10. I really think you should check it out. I really love it. Works well on Steam Deck as well. Going to my number 9 is Lonely Mountains Snow Riders. This is a game that is a follow-up to, if you've ever played Lonely Mountains Downhill. It was a mountain biking game that came out, I want to say 2018, 2019, something like that. I think it was 2019. I think it was close to the pandemic. And it's a series. First of all, the aesthetic is like very minimalist, low poly in the actual sense, in like the traditional sense where it's like something that's like I don't know. You'll understand the look. You can see the edges of curves. You can see the everything's kind of a little blocky, but the camera's really zoomed out pretty far, and so when you're far away, it has like another. It takes on another quality, I would say, with the camera being so far out. It's almost like it almost solves it almost does something similar to your brain as like pixel art. You know what I mean? Even though this is a 3D game, it's low poly. But in the way that like pixel art leaves a lot up to interpretation, with the camera being so far out in most cases, this art style kind of does something similar for me. And also the sound design in this game is excellent. So the point being, if you want to play a game about skiing and riding down mountains and hearing like the crisp snow ripping across your I almost said your blades. It's not a rollerblading game. Your skis. It's got a very grounding quality to it, I find. And it's been a game that, I just, have found myself going to whenever I want to relax or, play something at nighttime before bed. This one came out in January of 2025. And it's been a constant for me, throughout the year. I've gone back, and it's got multiplayer. So if you want to race downhill, there's also like a cool thing when you're playing, whether you're playing multiplayer or like a single player run, you're really trying to like beat your time down the hills and down these various slopes, but you can discover shortcuts and, it's a pretty challenging game in the way it doesn't get quite as zany as like the Trials games. If you've played those, that's one of my favorite series. Trials Fusion being my favorite. But if you enjoy the process in that game of perfecting a run and having to deal with like the physics of it all, making sure that when you land after a long air time, that you're landing correctly so that your weight is properly balanced so that you don't fall when you land. Very similar to what you have to do in Lonely Mountains Snow Riders. And yeah, I also I think like this team does excellent level design. I'm pulling up. I also want to give them a shout out. Megagon Industries is the developer and publisher. So a little indie game. There's DLC out right now. I think the base game is $25 normally, but if you're listening to this right now, it's on the Steam sale right now for $17, and that sale goes through January 5th. And I think there's a bundle as well, probably, that gets you that and Downhill. Yeah, there is. I'm adding that to my cart because I already own the game. So Lonely Mountains Downhill is only $4.50. Yeah, I'm adding that. I haven't bought anything on the Steam sale yet, but that'll probably be one of them. But yeah, that's my number 9. Moving on to number 8 is Elden Ring Night Rain. Of course, Elden Ring needs no introduction, and Night Rain is the multiplayer spin-off of Elden Ring. So 3 co-op players drop into the lands between and get up to shenanigans, you know? Yeah, all of the zany and wacky and punishing elements of Elden Ring and those comedic moments that also are intertwined in like very tense boss fights. All of that and the charm of all of that is present in Elden Ring Night Rain. And I find that the dynamic events it adds in terms of, you know, sometimes the map will erupt and there's a giant like lava core that you have to go into and fight a lava worm at the bottom. There's one, you know, one sort of map modifier that an ice mountain spawns, and you have to go up to the top and get ice resistance to then, you know, go and fight this dragon to get, you know, this excellent, you know, buff that'll help you in the final boss. Essentially, there's like multiple nights that happen, and you have to survive each night in Night Rain. And on the end of the final night, you and your friends teleport to this ethereal location and fight the final boss that you have picked to be the final boss at the start of your run. And so it's really about, can we drop what we need? Number one, it's a randomized factor, right? It's like a roguelite. It's like a co-op roguelite. And so what are the random map elements? You know, we are spawning in on eagles coming over the map. Let's take a quick look. What icons do we see on the mini map? What we have to also think about, like the elemental affinity of the final boss, and work to counter that with our build in Night Rain. And so that kind of really informs your starting location, and then having to move from location to location to slowly gear your character up and make decisions. Do I want to go to the church to increase my flask count? Do I want to, you know, go for this, you know, lightning affinity location that if I beat the enemies there, I know I'm going to get some gear that is going to be lightning adjacent in some way. While also all of these decisions are being made while a circle is closing in, while the night is closing in around you. It's in a similar fashion to a battle royale. And it slowly pushes you to a single location on the map that houses the night's boss. And so these are like the first night is, yeah, it's fairly not uncomplicated, I would say, actually. And then you get your second boss that's usually pretty harder, and then the third boss is the, you know, the final encounter, and those are very tricky and very challenging. But I really loved playing this game with Jesse Vitelli, friend of the show, and a few others. You know, I think Sean Thomas from Square, one of my buddies, I think we played. But it was just a game that, you know, for the sickos who, you know, really love Elden Ring and the mechanics of Elden Ring, and we're willing to give it a shot in a new weird format. I know it's not for everybody, and people kind of get scared away by the multiplayer element. And I would say that is valid. If you have friends who are willing to do it with you, I think it becomes much easier to digest and pull apart and discover secrets together. It's a lot of fun. Number 7 is Avowed from Obsidian. This came out earlier. Obsidian had a huge year between this, The Outer Worlds 2, Grounded 2. I think if you've listened to a podcast in 2025 about Xbox or Obsidian, you've probably heard their, you know, people are like, this is Obsidian, you know, it's their year, right? And I really have nothing of new or interest to add to that sentiment, except for that I agree. You know, they've had a banner year over at Obsidian, and I really enjoyed Avowed's flavor of fantasy. You know, if The Outer Worlds and The Outer Worlds 2 is their answer to, you know, I think when the Outer Worlds first came out, I think people likened it to, you know, Fallout in space, right? There were a lot of qualities there that were similar. Where Avowed is kind of, is this their parallel to Elder Scrolls rather, Skyrim, Oblivion, that sort of thing. And I had a lot of fun building my character in Avowed. I went sort of like a spell slinger. I carry around my spell book and wand. But the great thing is you could have multiple kind of loadouts in the game. So you press Y to change weapons, and suddenly you have a brand new set of abilities. And so I had like a wand and a spell book in one, and then I'd press Y and I'd pull out, at one point in time I was rocking a shield, like a handheld shield, and a pistol, like a flintlock pistol. That was fun. I don't think the play style was quite fit my preferences, but I think I often rocked just like a melee weapon or a flintlock rifle. But I really enjoyed kind of shaping my character. I also think this world is really beautiful. Obsidian did an excellent job with the art direction and the realization of that art direction. The actual execution of it, I felt was really excellent. And it's a game that I still haven't, I haven't finished it, unfortunately, but it's one that I have continually throughout the year gone back to and chipped off a little more. And it's just like, if you have 30 minutes, you can knock out a quest, or go and explore and fight some enemies and get some loot and gear. It is an RPG in that way, and it's a lot of fun. The companions don't do a ton for me, if I'm being honest, but they are at least they are like Kai, for instance. He's the first companion you get. He's like a blue fish man. That's at least interesting, right? And he's living on this coastal city, this coastal town, and I appreciate the attempt at giving me somebody that's not just like a white dude as my companion, right? It's a little more interesting than that. It's a blue dude, but yeah, Avowed, I like it a lot, and I'm going to finish it. It's just one of those things I'll keep plugging away at, and yeah, I'm enjoying the ride. Number 6 is the Bazaar. It's Bazaar. It is an auto battler. It's been in early access for a long time, actually. I've talked about it on the show before. You build your deck, or it's not even a deck. It's like you have a carpet that is laid out in front of you, and you are selecting items that you pick up from defeating enemies, defeating other players, or purchasing from the shops that you get along the way. Think almost like a very similar to like a Slay the Spire, or another one of those games where like you are fighting, then you're stopping to purchase, make purchases or interact with vendors or do little side activities before getting back to the fights. And the way that it works in the Bazaar is it goes, you fight a PC enemy that's usually a little easier, and you can get some pretty good gear from them. Then you have a chance to go to a vendor again, and then you're going to fight a real player. And it kind of like alternates between those. You go like PC or like AI, then real player, AI, then real player, with these breaks in between. It's a really great game, a lot of really game-breaking combos, and there's really neat characters that all have like their own, I'm just gonna say decks. They aren't cards necessarily, but functionally it is a deck of potential items that you can come across in your run. And if you're somebody who loves theory crafting and coming up with new combinations for items and new interactions to beat out your enemy, who's also doing the same thing in an auto battler situation, it's a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. I know a lot of my folks, a lot of my friends rather, also played on Steam Deck specifically. So yeah, check that out. I am going to speed up because I'm realizing I'm already at 20 minutes and Eric's going to kill me if he has to edit this. Number 5 is Hollow Knight Silksong. What's there to say? It's the follow-up to one of the most successful indie games of all time. I think the world building in Silksong is incredible from the jump. The themes of religious trauma and oppression from the manipulation and exploitation of religious power, and how that really affects a lower class of people who are without. And there are a lot of twisted promises and delusions that have been placed on this pilgrim people, and I think it's really poignant, actually, and I resonated with it a lot, with things I've gone through in my own personal life. And I think it's just, that world is excellent, excellently executed, and I really enjoyed exploring its various secrets and corners and getting rewarded almost every time. And obviously it is a tough game. That has been a big conversation around this game. It is a very tough game. I think in some places, don't come at me, in a few places it is almost too challenging, I think, for the average player. You really have to want to stick with it, and there's a certain amount of resolve you have to have, I think, to enjoy Silksong. And I count myself as somebody that has a decent amount of resolve. I like challenging games, but there was a couple rooms in Silksong where I'm like, this just isn't fun, and I think had those rooms not been in the game, because it just feels wildly unbalanced in some places. Some people debate, well, that's the point, right, of like the theme of like this oppression, and I think just as a game, it's a little uneven in places, pulling it apart from its themes. Like the act of playing the game is uneven at times, and I think it would have been higher on my list if that had been a little smoother. But it's number 5 for a reason. I loved it. It's a fantastic game. I'll be thinking and talking about it for a long time. Number 4 is Wildgate, a multiplayer game that not enough people played this year. I really, really love this game. It's from, I do want to say that, like, people who are like familiar with old Blizzard games, Mike Morheim might be a familiar name. He started a studio that publishes and develops games. They've got like multiple labels, and within those labels are, I think, 3 different studios. Secret Door, Moonshot Games are the ones who develop Wildgate, but it all falls under Dreamhaven, which is this. Sunderfolk is another one that came out. Linked Banner of the Spark. They've got a lot of they're doing a lot. It's like I think it's one of the most interesting studios to watch right now, because what they're doing, they're putting out games that other people aren't making, and they are good and they are interesting when they come out, which is, both good things. And I think the proof will be in the pudding in terms of, how, if it's sustainable for them. But right now every time I see something from Dreamhaven, I want to check it out. But Wildgate is a PvPvE multiplayer shooter. Don't check out. It is essentially Sea of Thieves in space. So if you enjoy the act of steering and piloting the ship with your friends in Sea of Thieves, this accomplishes a very similar feeling for spaceships. You are manually flying your ship around. You've got other crew members needing to go out and get fuel and coolant, and mine them from like asteroids in space that you pass. You're constantly going to these you could call them dungeons. They're locations in the world, POIs, and they have random challenges in them of various difficulties, and the loot corresponds with that difficulty. And you're slowly upgrading your ship throughout a match. Meanwhile, I think 5 other ships are doing the same thing, and you're all trying to, at the end of the match, find this artifact. It's called the artifact. It's the MacGuffin, right, that everybody's chasing. And you have to escape through a portal called the Wild Gate, the namesake object in the game that, you know, is crucial to winning. So you got to win by taking the artifact and escaping through the Wild Gate, which is challenging because everyone can see your location if you're carrying the artifact. So suddenly all eyes are on you, and there's, you know, other ships that are trying to block you from getting out and attacking you. And in these big like dogfights, you're managing your shields, you're utilizing the weapons and swapping out turret placements and other like perks, like, you know, you get these what are they? They're like kind of like ship augments that are like, you know, automated security system or improved boosts, or there's one that you press a big button and it shoots out an electromagnetic field. There's one that's just a laser ram that you install into the side of your ship, and it just, if you get close to an enemy, it drills through their armor and will quickly destroy them. And so everybody's kind of like doing this game and trying to overcome the environment and really reap the rewards that come from fully exploring it, while also, you know, being in stalemates or active battles with other players who are doing the same thing. It's a great game. I highly recommend it. It's called Wild Gate. Okay, number 3 is Peak, which is the co-op comedy climbing game that came out in June of 2025. If you haven't heard of Peak, I'm surprised because it definitely took the internet by storm when it came out. If you have heard the term friend slop, it is one of the primary games behind that conversation that kind of spawned that conversation of friend slop, right? I don't like the term. Call it what you want, but it's an excellent game. You and your friends are participating in you crash land on an island, and you are slowly climbing up to the peak where you get rescued by a helicopter. And along the way, you go through multiple biomes. You know, you go from the shore, the like red rocky shore area where you crash land. Then you go up to like this vine covered tropical, it's not an oasis, it's a very challenging area, but like this tropical fauna that's very dangerous and poisonous. And then you beat that and you get to the snowy area, and you're having to manage your stamina, which is also your health. And so if that gets to 0, you get exhausted and you pass out and you usually die. Sometimes your friends can bring you back with various items, or they can carry you. You're tossing ropes to each other and like really trying to, it's this big, imagine like in real life, like a mountain peak, right? And then making a 3D diorama of that you can kind of go around. It's randomly generated, and you're like, it's really a game of trying to pathfind your way up that mountain using the various tools you acquire. And it's an excellent game. It's an excellent hook. I'm jealous that a long time ago, like 2019, I had an idea for a game that was similar to this, inspired by like Death Stranding. But what if it was like, more focused on the actual climbing mechanic? And to see Peak come out and do that, obviously my idea was way more simplified than theirs. Like they really fleshed out the idea and executed it greatly. And it's one of my favorite games of the year. It's also really funny. I recommend to play with friends and to use the in-game voice chat, because it's all kind of diegetic. And so if you're farther away from your friends, it's hard to hear them. If you're in a cavern, you can hear the reverb of the cavern. It's very immersive and often hilarious as you see like your friend fall to their death, and like they're screaming and their voice is slowly getting quieter until it just fades out and they're gone. It's an excellent effect. So I recommend doing that over like a Discord instead of a Discord, rather. Number 2, Blueprints. Puzzle game of the year, in my opinion. It is an excellent game about you're inside this magical mansion of sorts that has a lot of mysteries. It kind of reminds me like the vibe of like, what was that old book series of unfortunate events, and the way that they described the manor in those books remind there's an element of familiarity there when I play Blueprints and I think about that book, even though Blueprints is I would say much more grounded than that. But yeah, it's like this house of secrets, and uncovering those secrets takes a lot of effort. It takes a notebook and pen. It takes many runs and you know, probably 30 hours to really get to. I would say that's the average I've heard. And if you're willing to put in that work, it is an excellent puzzle game, and you feel fulfilled and smart and creative when you accomplish your goals in that game, whether it's the end goal or an important milestone along the way and solving the larger puzzle at hand. I think, you know, this is one of the best puzzle games to do it. It is fresh and unique, and I love it. Go play Blueprints. My number one game of the year is Arc Raiders. It is a game that I think I would have scored. I maybe would have given it a 10 if it hadn't been for the voice to text AI voices in the game. It did detract from my enjoyment of the game. And it is part of the conversation. So I want to say that up front, that is an element with this game, and there's an ongoing conversation about it that I totally respect if people are boycotting this. I think there is a bit of nuance there, you know, and we don't have all the details in terms of, you know, one thing that's different about this is they are not like generating AI voices from, you know, stealing work ostensibly. They have worked with and contracted voice actors to use their likeness to, you know, develop voices on the fly in development. I think that that definitely, a lot of that falls flat for me. Like, the dialogue is not great, you know, and I think it sticks out. I had the same critique for The Finals, which is their first game that Embark developed, and I think the voice acting is flat and kind of mires the otherwise brilliant human-made elements of Arc Raiders, which I think, you know, taking away that piece that I really don't like. I think Arc Raiders is a brilliant multiplayer game. And, you know, when I was coming up with my list, I was really conflicted about where I was going to place this on my list because of all of that conversation, you know, my own feelings, and, you know, I just can't look away from the fact that it has been the vehicle for many of my favorite gaming moments this year. And, you know, though it's a messy, complicated game, I think it's like I said, the human parts of it are excellent. And, you know, if for some reason you haven't heard of it, you've been living under a rock, it's a PvPvE shooter where you are kind of going out in this place called Speranza, and you know, robots have taken over the world, and you are, you know, trying to go up and loot and survive along the way, encountering other players who are doing the same thing. The gunplay is excellent. The art direction, I think this might be the best looking multiplayer game I have played, period. It is brilliantly rendered. It is gorgeous. And, you know, its AI is incredibly powerful, and like AI, like art, like the AI enemies, right? Like the artificial intelligence powering the enemies, is brilliant and really well executed and scary, even scarier sometimes than other players. And it succeeded in its goal of making the extraction shooter more approachable for the everyday player. I think it succeeded in that, and I definitely give it its flowers for doing that. I think the player base is oddly friendly, or has been up until this point, for a game that is so tense and oppressive. In other games like Escape from Tarkov, it tends to, you feel the player base affected by that tension and they react in hostility. Whereas in Arc Raiders, weirdly, the community has reacted by, togetherness, I guess. It's like, and as the casual players have kind of dropped off, of course it has gotten more competitive and more hostile than its early months, but still there is like a friendly spirit beneath Arc Raiders that is really hard to overlook and adds a quality to the game. That being said, I am the guy who I will kill you. I will come after you. I will hunt you down, because the game doesn't work without people like me, without villains. You know what I mean? It doesn't work. You have to have that tension for every player. The game's not fun without the tension. So I deliver the tension. I am the problem. But yeah, Eric's gonna kill me at how long this segment is. I'm sorry. Thank you for listening to my rant. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't forget, GameInformer.com/subscribe. I hope you have a great holiday and you have an excellent time relaxing. All right, peace.
Hey guys, it's Marcus Stewart here, and it is now my turn to share my editor top 10 and break down why I chose the way that I did. Because like every good list article, I'm sure you read all of our top 10s and got to mine specifically, and you shrugged your shoulders and you were like, why is Marcus the way that he is? Well, I'm about to tell you why. So, going from 10 to 1, number 10 was Dispatch. I like me some Dispatch, and this came in hot because I guess a little bit sort of a peek behind the curtain. We do our editor picks after we decide our Game of the Year and Game of the Year awards, just because it's the easiest thing to put together in terms of magazine layout, which means we get a bit more time to decide our personal top 10 before we have to come to a consensus for the major, the staff top 10. And all of that is to say is that Dispatch was still ongoing when we decided our Game of the Year, had not finished its full season yet, and by the time we got to or had to turn in our editor top 10s, Dispatch had finished, and that's why it came in at number 10 real hot. If it had finished before we decided our Game of the Year, I think it might have cracked our top 10, just because I think it landed on several editors top 10. But long-winded way to say it's a great adventure game. Love the writing, love the characters, love the presentation too. Like, it's a sharp looking game. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I thought it was kind of over the Telltale sort of like episodic adventure release, but I think they had a nice steady cadence, 2 episodes a week, got through it quickly, and I really hope we do get a second season. I really like Dispatch. My number 9 is Ghost of Yotei. Not much to say about this one, actually. It's almost boring in how much of a good sequel it is, and that it takes everything that worked in Ghost of Tsushima and just does it better, at least in my opinion. I think Atsu is a much better and more interesting protagonist than I found Jin Sakai in the original game. It still looks gorgeous and technically looks a little bit better just because it's running on better hardware than a PS4. I think the combat is a bit better too and more interesting with the different weapons that you can wield. And I also like the story a bit more. One thing that bugged me in Ghost of Tsushima, which is a game that I liked but also was never super hot on like a lot of other people, was I got so annoyed with the whole like, oh, if you sneak around and stab people instead of confronting them face to face, that makes you a terrible person, and your uncle just does not understand we're at war. Like, that drove me insane. And to me, the uncle was the real bad guy because he wouldn't let Jin do what needed to be done to stop these invaders. Whereas Atsu almost has like a Kill Bill style like revenge quest of like, I'm coming after these 6 weird and interesting villains that left me for dead and killed my family. Like, there's a fun, almost like Tarantino-ness to it. Like a good Western that I enjoy much more than Ghost of Tsushima story. But yeah, I like me some Ghost of Yotei. I think it's a very, very good game. My number 8 is Donkey Kong Bonanza. Oh, banana. What a good Donkey Kong game. What a surprise too. Like, we didn't know this game even existed coming into this year. And just the idea of like not doing just another Donkey Kong Country, but this much more interesting sort of like terraforming borderline action game, and it's a great like showcase, I guess, tech showcase for the Switch 2. Was super fun. Like the first half of the game, you almost never get tired of punching through the earth. Like it's just never ceases to be impressive how destructible the worlds are. And also for me, kind of cathartic. Like it became like a decent stress reliever to be like, I'm just gonna punch through a boulder and let off some steam. But I think the bonanza powers are all fun. I think the music is phenomenal. I love the final act of the game that I won't spoil, but I think it ends strong and has one of the best sort of finales of any game this year. Yeah, Donkey Kong Bonanza, probably the best, not even probably, we voted for it, like the best Switch 2 exclusive this year. I think I'd even put it above Metroid personally, and I really like Metroid. My number 6 is Hollow Knight Silksong. Hey, speaking of sequels to things that are probably better than the original, I love Hollow Knight, love it to death, hard game, but a lot of fun. And Silksong, you can say the same things about, but I think Hornet's a more interesting and more fun protagonist just because how much more nimble she is. She has a bit more tools to play with. I think the music in the world, much like the original, is outstanding. It's hard as hell, but it's got an intentionality behind it that, as someone that enjoys tough games, like I'm a big Souls-like person, I can see sort of the artistry and how the game's designed, even when it's segments where like I'm just getting my ass kicked and you got to make these run backs. Like I can still respect sort of like the combat and boss design in the encounters. Yeah, it's fun. It's a really fun game. It's tough as hell, but I love me some Silksong, so that is why it's my number 6. And now getting into the top 5, my number 5 is Split Fiction, a game that I'm sad we never was able to do a proper review of because the game came out when we were kind of right in the middle of our relaunch, so we were still very much putting things back together that we just weren't able to give the game a proper review. But I played through this game with a buddy over a course of a couple months, and much like It Takes Two, it is just this never-ending gauntlet of just supremely creative and inventive co-op mechanics. Like I think it's even better than It Takes Two, and I really loved It Takes Two, but I think the story's better. I think the characters aren't nearly as grating as the mom and dad in It Takes Two. I like that it's a little bit more action focused. Like it's still got platforming, but I think like It Takes Two is a little bit more of a platformer. This is a little bit more of an action game, like a serious action game, which I do caution if you are going to play with someone, this isn't as much of a casual experience as It Takes Two can be. Not that It Takes Two is, but I think this is a little bit more like the skill ceiling's a little higher in Split Fiction. But I think the story goes some interesting places. I think once you get beyond the kind of cliched opening and sort of like setup of the two characters of like, I'm fantasy and I'm sci-fi and I'm from the country and I'm from the city, how are we going to coexist? Like it gets into each character sort of emotional motivations later on that make them more appealing and like relatable. Also that final boss. So one of my triumphs this year in GOTY was I campaigned hard when we were deciding like what was the best boss fight or boss sequence of the year. And I pushed so hard for Split Fiction because that last like level or whatever you want to call it is incredible. Like just when you think the game couldn't possibly come up with any more cool ideas for its like split screen gameplay, it just is this topsy-turvy, just mind-bending sequence. Again, I won't spoil, but I remember me and my friend were just like yelling at each other over Discord, like, what is happening? Like, this is nuts. Like, it is just such a great exclamation point to that experience. So yeah, number 5, right in the middle, Split Fiction. All right, we're inching towards the upper echelon now, the elite. So number 4 is The Root Trees Are Dead. Speaking of games that I made a personal mission to campaign for throughout 2025, I reviewed The Root Trees Are Dead. I think it was the first or second new review that I wrote, or 2025 game that I reviewed when we relaunched, because it came out in January. It was the first game I saw this year that when it came out, there was already buzz online from my peers saying like, hey, this is like the first great game of 2025. Do not miss this game. I love puzzle games. I love mystery games. I especially love investigation style games. Like I'm really big into like Her Story or like the Golden Idol games. So this scratches a lot of those same itches. It is a brilliant puzzle game. You can read my review if you want to get my detailed thoughts on it, but it is a game I never stopped thinking about, and I'm glad that I was able to convince a few of my coworkers to play it, who also fell in love with it, which is great because enough of us loved it to get it in our top 10, which I'm really happy with. But it's a great game if you love puzzle games, if you love feeling like a detective. I cannot recommend Root Trees Are Dead enough. It is a just great game. And even I fired it up again recently, actually, to capture some footage, and I fell right back into it because enough time had kind of passed where I forgot some of the puzzles. So like even firing it up months later, I was like, oh yeah, like I just want to sit down and solve this whole thing all over again. But Root Trees, go out of your way to play it. Great game. Number 3. This was tough. I was bouncing between my number 2 and number 3, but my number 3 is Hades 2. So Hades was my game of the year in 2020. And I'm a big Supergiant fans game in general. One of my, actually probably my favorite cover story that I've done for Game Informer was the Hades 2 cover story. I got to go to visit Supergiant, write all about the game right before it launched into, or as it was launching into early access. And Hades 2 is sort of like the Ghost of Yotei, where like, yeah, it took a already solid or great template and just made it better. Like just like I was happy to just get more Hades, but the additions and tweaks that Hades 2 add are stuff that like it would almost make it hard to go back to Hades 1 because I would miss things so much, like the Omega attacks, the settlement building, like building out the crossroads with the farming and the like cauldron stuff. Like I think it adds a lot more to do. But during runs, like there's more to chase besides just getting to the end. Like you can, you're finding upgrade materials for your weapons. Even the boons have been, fleshed out more with the different elemental properties. So there's a little bit more strategy in choosing your boons besides just, either going with your favorites or what you've already sort of been gunning towards. Especially with like the duo boons that you can get every now and then. I enjoy the story. I think Malinaway is a very good protagonist. I like everyone at the crossroads. It's a blast. Like it's definitely the game I've probably spent the most time on my Switch 2 with this year, which is where I'm primarily playing it. Though I love that there's crossplay between the Switch 2 or the Switch and PC versions, which is nice if I want to sit down on a bigger screen. But gorgeous game, phenomenal music. Shout out to Darren Korb, and yeah, shout out to everyone on the whole team. They killed it. Like they took a game that I already thought was like the best roguelike ever made, and they managed to top themselves with Hades 2. So yeah, very happy with it, and still playing through it, still putting in runs. My number 2, in terms of maybe the best roguelike of this year, is Blueprints. So more than any other game this year, I mentioned how I had an obsession with Root Trees. There's like Blueprints is the game I have maybe felt the most just like I could not stop thinking about this game. Like when I wasn't playing the game, I was just mulling different puzzles in my head and possible solutions, and it would just get me excited to get in and put in another run. The sense of discovery in this game is phenomenal. The puzzles themselves are just ingenious and brilliant, and it's so good that it makes up for the frustration that can come with it being so RNG focused. Because even if you can't focus or solve a puzzle, the primary puzzle you were chasing, just because of luck of the draw, there's so many other like ancillary mysteries that are just as interesting that you can gun for instead. And once I kind of surrendered myself to like, I can't make everything happen when I want it to, but there's still enough here that I can just chip away at all these other little mysteries. Like that's when I really clicked with the game. I think it's like it's one of those things where like I don't know how someone could come up with this idea. Like you're so impressed that like, what a crazy idea. How has no one ever thought of this? And how did someone even think of this? But I love Blueprints. It is a great game. And I put like 60 hours into that thing before I saw credits. And there's still mysteries that I haven't found that I want to circle back to and try to clean up, which now we're on winter break, so I can do that. So Blueprints, my number 2. And now my personal GOTY, which is the least surprising GOTY of all time, maybe. It's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. What more can be said about this game? I'm an RPG fan. this is one of the best RPGs I've ever played, like bar none. From the like maybe the best turn-based combat I've ever played, especially as someone that likes more active turn-based combat of something like a Mario Luigi or whatever. I think this does it the best. Like the parrying and dodging is such a fun addition, and it adds like a skill-based element to otherwise just selecting commands. The story's phenomenal. It's such a different tone and style of like an RPG story. Like just the sense of desperation and just this existential threat. And the story takes so many wild turns, right? I never saw where it was gonna go. And like none of the turns ever felt like ridiculous or like the game was going off the rails. Like it sets up, not only is the primary plot interesting, but sort of the world building around it is fascinating. And they delve into it just enough, but leave so much left sort of like unanswered that if they ever return to this universe, which I hope they do, there's so much more that they can sort of like expand upon. But like one of the best art directions of the year, like just the world itself is just fascinating to look at. The performances are great, the music's phenomenal. I'll have that main sad theme in my head for probably the rest of my life, especially hearing it 10 times during the Game Awards as they won everything. But yeah, you know, like I feel like people are almost turning on Clair Obscur because it's at that point where it's so popular that you're tired of hearing about it. But I think that it deserves all of its flowers. Like it's a great game. If you're an RPG fan especially, you should absolutely go out of your way to play Clair Obscur. Wonderful game. I think it's a very deserving game of the year. I'm glad we gave it our staff game of the year, and it's also my personal game of the year. So yeah, that is my top 10 games of 2025. Like or hate them, it's where I'm at, darn it. And these lists are never easy to put together. There's so many good games that were just on the bubble that I just had to be honest with myself and just kind of like just sit down and take a bench. But like looking back at it now, I think I still stand by this list. And yeah, it's been a good year. It's been a good year for some gaming.
Hey guys, Associate Editor Charles Harte here. I'm going to run you through my top 10 games of 2025. Starting out at number 10, pretty low compared to other people on staff, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I did like this game. I played it like a month ago, so very much at the tail end of the year. I had a major moment, the ending of Act 1, if you played the game. I had that spoiled for me because I read the review guide because I was editing the video review, and it kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit, so I just put it down. Came back to it way later. I did like it, and I'm going to talk lightly about some of my criticisms of it. Note that I do like it. It made it onto my top 10. Just the things people like have been talked about so much that it's like I don't need to go over them again, you know? So I feel like it's going to feel like I feel badly about this game, but this is the reason that it's not higher on the list. I felt Act 2 was a little too long. And there's a character named Verso who I actually am not crazy about. I think he's a very like popular character amongst the fan base. I know a lot of people think he's really hot. I guess I'm not attracted to men, so maybe that's it. But he has well, I don't need to get too into it. I don't need to spoil the game for people who haven't played it. But that was a lot of my bulk, was this like center part of the game. And then there's also it really bothered me when the mouths didn't match up to the speaking. The animations they had for the people, it didn't always line up, and for some reason that bothered me a lot. Other than that, obviously it's a great game, it's a beautiful game. I just had those things really bothered me, and there's a lot more in that Act 2 Verso stuff that I'm not getting into right now for spoiler reasons, but still a good game. Number 9, I have South of Midnight. This was a game I really liked. I reviewed it early in the year. If you never played it, it's about a girl named Hazel and her quest to go save her mom from this like magical world based on Southern American folklore. I think the storytelling is handled really well. The music is fantastic. There's a lot of they tell stories as songs. So when you're fighting these bosses that are like these mythical creatures, it's done in this like dynamic soundtrack that goes along as you fight the boss and tells a story of that fight as you're doing it. The main criticism a lot of people have with this game is the combat. And I understand, it's not the best combat system in the world. The thing that I felt when playing it is late in the game, you unlock a lot of really cool abilities that synergize with each other. And so these moves that are really cool and have these really long cooldowns, you find these ways that if you play creatively, you can basically instantly reset these cooldowns. And late game combat I found really cool because it's very strategic in your own head. You're like trying to balance, what you're going to do next to get your thing back, versus, all the enemies that are on screen. I think if it had gotten to that part earlier, it would have felt a lot more satisfying for a lot more people. And I can see how it was designed with that end point in goal. But it just took too long to get there. So I think a lot of people bounced off of it quickly, which I understand. But I think this game is very underrated. I think it's awesome. Number 8 is Mario Kart World. What is there to say about Mario Kart World, man? I really like this game. I didn't play a lot of the single player free roam stuff. That didn't really click for me. But I love playing knockout tours with my friends. And I specifically have loved it being a way. It was a great first game for the Switch 2. And when I've shown Switch 2 to people that don't have the console, it's been a really fun way to, I'll play a cup with them, and then I'll be like, all right, we're going to do this last cup, this last Grand Prix that ends in Rainbow Road, because it's such like a visually cool experience to be like, oh, this is what Mario Kart can be at its like highest production value, most exciting. And that's really, really cool. I also love that you can play as a cow. I'm a Moo Moo Meadows Day 1 stan, so that rocks. Number 7, Monster Train 2. This is a game I love so much. And when I was writing the review earlier this year, I called it my favorite roguelike of the year. And that's just not true. And my editor, Brian Shea, at the time, he was like, you should take this out because like weeks earlier, I had reviewed Blueprints and I had, for some reason, didn't register in my head as a roguelike when I was playing Monster Train 2. And then Hades 2 came out later. And it's unfortunate because Monster Train 2, most years, would have been my favorite roguelike of the year. I think it's such a good game. I think it's so well designed. I think it's amazing the amount of elements and variables that they've incorporated in the game that make it feel fun and varied. Like you can keep going back and it feels like a different experience every time without it feeling overwhelming or like you have to do that. It is, if you haven't played it, it's kind of like tower defense meets like deck builder roguelike. So you're defending a train. It's got 3 levels and you can place enemies on those, or sorry, not enemies, your allies on those levels, and they'll attack. You can also cast spells at the enemies. It's one of those things that it's kind of hard to explain on paper, but once you start playing it, like it makes perfect sense. And Monster Train 1 was very good and I liked it a lot. Monster Train 2 adds a bunch of new like factions that you can play as, and there's so many ways to mix and match it. It also does a thing I really love where there's like these little challenge side modes. So when you're playing a roguelike, right, there's a lot of randomized elements naturally by the nature of a roguelike. And sometimes you'll get a really cool run where you're like, oh, I have this doing that, and this synergizes really well, and wow, I'm doing a ton of damage with a move I don't use very often, or I never would have picked this if the stars hadn't aligned in that way. What I love about the Monster Train 2 challenge mode is they're like, hey, what if we tweaked the rules just enough and gave you this specific thing to put you in the shoes of like a really cool specific run? And some of them are harder, some of them are easier, but it's always like fun in a way that you wouldn't get out of the normal roguelike experience, and that I find consistently rewarding and exciting. And Hades 2 kind of has a thing like that where, and I'll get into that later, obviously, where you're giving certain weapons and boons to do certain things. So it's not like unique to Monster Train 2, but I thought it was really done well there, and there's a lot of options and like a tree of side things to unlock there. So love Monster Train 2. Number 6, a little game called Is the Seat Taken? This is another game I reviewed. I really love this game. I gave it, I believe, a 9.25 when I reviewed it. It is a puzzle game where you're just putting little shapes in different seats and they all have different preferences and you're trying to make sure everyone's happy. Words fail to explain why this hits so hard for me. I think it's just, to me, it's just everything I want in a cute little puzzle game like this. It's a game that kind of feels like it's existed forever, you know? Like, it's such a simple idea and they take it to such, like, interesting, engaging places where it's like they're sitting on a bus and some people want to look out the window and some people they get motion sickness in the front of the bus, you got to put them in the back, etc., etc. But then they're at the beach and some people want to be in the sun, some people want to be in the water, and some people want to do whatever. It's like, it's just such a good idea. I can't believe it hasn't been done before. And that's I love when a puzzle game, a game feels like it has always existed, or feels like it was inevitable for this thing to happen. It's just so pleasant. It's such a chill time. It's on PC, it's on Switch, and I believe it's on mobile too. It's a great mobile experience. Or I take that back, I haven't played it on mobile. It's a good type of game that would be on mobile. That's what I should have said. But yeah, I really like this game. It's also one of those like hyper accessible games. Like, there's no timer, there's no like punishment for failure. So it's a really good thing to be like, hey, you're 6, you need to play a game. And, you know, your parents don't want you on something that, you know, is online multiplayer or has some kind of dangerous elements, or even just, you know, real intense stuff. It's just a really good game you can put in front of people of all ages, and they'll understand it. They'll get it immediately. And it's just fun. That is the seat taken. Number 5, the root trees are dead. I love this game. I need to stop starting each of these with saying I love the game, because it's kind of implied it's on my top 10 games of the year. This is a game it was not really on my radar. I knew Marcus had reviewed it earlier, but then I did the big min-max charity stream, Give to the Max. We raised a bunch of money. One of the games we played along was the Gamage, so it was like the Gomage from Clair Obscur, but with video games. And the idea is that people would donate towards a certain game, and the game that got the least amount of donations would get Gamaged and get deleted from the list. And it was basically people voting on what their favorite games were. And by some small miracle, the Root Trees Are Dead won the whole thing, which shocked me. It beat like it was the top 12 or so rated games on Metacritic of the year. So Root Trees Are Dead won that, and I was like, geez, I guess people like this game. I should check it out. And I did, and I was feverishly playing it. I loved this game in an obsessive way. You were basically, it's in the late 90s, you get access to a computer, and you're basically just trying to put together this family tree, and you're reading through these web pages, trying to get clues, trying to figure out the right keywords to search. You have access to like an internet browser, a old like periodicals file to sort through like old magazines and newspapers and stuff. You have access to like a public library records. And it's a game that like when you get a puzzle right, gosh, you feel so smart. It's just so engaging, and I really liked it. Number 4 is Dispatch. This is a game, I'm sure you've heard of it. Choice-based animated superhero workplace comedy. It really is just a lot of really solid dialogue writing in a way that video games don't get very often, where you can just see a quick scene between two people and I just immediately understand their vibes and their character. It's a really good showing, not telling. It's kind of like an oversimplification of it, but I think video game dialogue, when we talk about narratives being good, and there's another clip of podcast of me saying this, but when we talk about narratives being good in a video game, it's usually in the context of video games, right? Like if I say a Mario game has a really good story, if you watch all the cutscenes back to back, it's not gonna be good in the way that a TV show is good, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just a different type of thing. Dispatch is good in a TV show way, and I think in that sense it is very easy for someone who doesn't play video games to play this game and really like it a lot, and also for someone who's used to like video game type dialogue to be like, oh, I didn't realize that these two things could be fused so successfully in this way, or if I knew that, it hasn't happened so often. So it's very exciting, and I like feeling like you're making big choices. Like when you make a choice in a chapter, it impacts the next chapter pretty significantly, just in terms of like the people on your team or in your roster. And I really like that, and I thought it was a awesome story. Great performances also. I'm a big Aaron Paul fanboy. If you're watching the video version, I have a BoJack Horseman poster in front of me or behind me, and he's one of my favorite voice actors in that show. But I do think, even my fandom for him aside, I think he does a really good performance of Robert in this game, bringing like a certain detached depression to the situation that like really grounds him as a character and kind of makes all of the like fantastical superhero stuff, it's easier to process it because it's like, oh, this is like a real guy dealing with this. All right, moving on to the top 3. At number 3, I've got Ghost of Yotei. I really like this game. I said I'd stop doing that, but here I did again. I was not a big Ghost of Tsushima fan. I never finished it. I didn't play all that much of it. This does enough new and smart in terms of like just open world game design that I was just really engaged by it. I think the way the story kicks off, I'm not going to spoil it, but you're in the action immediately right off the bat. We don't have to wait a really long time to see the protagonist Atsu get to be the type of character that she is ultimately going to become, and I think that's really smart, really good. It's basically just it's a way I felt seen by the developers, and they're like, you've played a lot of open world games, you're used to that slow start where it's cutscene heavy, you don't really get to explore, you don't really get all of the elements that are in an open world. And this is just like, hey, here's opening cutscene, here's a sick opening sequence and boss fight, and now you're just kind of in this first open area. It looks beautiful right off the bat, it feels fun right off the bat, and then as you continue to unlock new weapons, I love all the weapons. I think more weapons is more interesting than the sword stances personally. And I love that you're basically always encouraged to use all of them. Like if they had different stats or different specific things that you would favor one over the other, you would have a reason to just kind of like lock in to one and pick that one for a while. And I like that Atsu is like a master of all these weapons in that she uses them all constantly and just whips them out whenever they're necessary. And yeah, I just found the open world super fun to explore. I found the side quests, they felt meaningful and varied. Some games I specifically just get into a mindset where I'm like, I'm just going to be done with side quests right now. I know they're good for items or XP or whatever, but I'm just kind of sick of doing that, and I just want to progress the main story, especially when these games are so long. With Ghost of Yotei, I never really had the urge to like not do a side quest. It's just really good, really well designed open world game. Number 2, my number 2 and number 1, I reviewed both of these games, so in a sense their positions were already decided, but they're so different that it was kind of hard for me to pick a favorite for number 1, but I ultimately went with what my scores were. Number 2, I have Blueprints. Blueprints is unlike any other game I'd ever played. Some of the like kind of obtuse puzzle games that it's kind of mimicking, that's not something I really had a lot of experience with. I was mainly going into this, I was like, yeah, it's a roguelike, I like roguelikes, and lots of people were talking about this game. And just the way that it makes you pay attention, it crafts these spaces in a way that once it clicks, it's just like the greatest feeling of eureka. I played this game with my then girlfriend, now fiance, on the couch next to me. She had like a color-coded notebook, and we were just playing it together, going through this. There's one part where we figured out a secret we didn't need to figure out so early, and just that feeling of euphoria is just like unmatched. It just feels crazy cool. And it's one of those things that, again, things I value in a game. I value something cohesive. Like, I want all the parts to feel like they go together. And I also really value stuff that I feel like could only happen in a video game. And we're talking about the way that the player and the developer are kind of coming together in this way. And I think Blueprints is a really good example of that, of like, it is only fun because I have the experience and commitment that I brought to this thing that this other person made. And it created something new, an experience I've never felt before, and one that I really, really liked. I know people complain about the randomness here, and I think just as someone who plays a lot of roguelikes, it doesn't really bother me to have a run that kind of gets dumped in the trash. It always sucks when it goes really long, but I do think that's an interesting complaint, and I understand why people have it. Like, it sucks to just be stuck down in the randomness, and that is kind of one of the things that keeps it from being, you know, a perfect 10 out of 10 in my review. I give it a 9.5. But to me, it's just kind of a trapping of the genre, and I don't really mind it as much as some other people do. And it does make it so that when you do achieve it, it feels significant that you've like bested both the puzzles of this world and then also the odds of the house lining up in your favor. And yeah, Blueprints, it's amazing. It's a game that I think everyone needs to check out and try, because if you like it, it's going to change your life. And that, of course, leads number one. Probably wasn't surprising if you know me and the stuff I reviewed. The only 10 out of 10 I've ever given in my career, Hades 2. I adore this game. Of all the games on here, it is the game I have definitely played the most of, and one that I keep returning to despite reviewing it and having beat it and spent like a really intense several days just playing runs and after run after run of this game. I think Hades 2 is stellar. I think it feels really good. The main thing I touched on in my review is that it is one of the most rewarding games I've ever played, in that each run I feel you have some reason to go back out for another run. You have some reward that you gained from the run before. It's just a constant feeling of progression despite doing, dozens of runs before you're reaching the end of the game. An anecdote I had in my review also is I played like 50 runs, and on my 50th run, I unlocked a new weapon and I found a new god, so a new boon that I'd never had before. And it was like I had done so many runs, and this was one, even this many hours and this many runs in, that was just completely different. And that is awesome. That's crazy. Not a lot of games can do that and do that so well, and that it feels good all the time. I think the one thing that I didn't really touch on as much in my review that people have complaints about is the story of the game. Supergiant has gone back and changed the ending of the game, which is really interesting. They are just very early access heavy, and they just hadn't put the story content out there. People didn't like it, so they went back and adjusted it, which I think is a interesting precedent to set, just in terms of games of changing your message based on player feedback. In this case, I think it was for the better. I think the new changes add more agency to the characters that needed agency, and kind of contextualizes some of the big choices being made a little bit more. But for what it's worth, when I played the game initially, I did like it. I understand the criticisms now that I have heard them, but my initial gut reaction was, wow, that was awesome. I think Melinoway is great. I think Kronos is a really interesting villain. A lot of good performances in this game. The music is stellar. It's a standout. It's awesome. But yeah, I think the main reason, this is a 10. This is my number one. This is a game that I'm just going to keep coming back to. I'm just going to keep playing. I thought... before this, I would have said Hades was the greatest roguelike of all time. I now think it goes to Hades 2. And I think they're different enough in my mind that, if I'm craving Hades 1, I'm going to play Hades 1. Hades 2 is a different feeling altogether with all the new mechanics and stuff they've added. And yeah, Hades 2. Love it. It's been a great year for games. And yeah, I hope you liked my list. And if not, I hope you like someone else's.
Hey Game Informer, this is video editor Eric Van Allen here. My top 10, pretty self-explanatory. I feel like it was reflective of a strange year where once again I found myself drifting towards things that just kind of gave me experiences I hadn't really had before in games. A lot of stuff this year I think really challenged me and got me thinking about why I really like games in the first place, and really made me dive deep on them. So without further ado, coming in at number 10, Lego Party, a bit of an outlier maybe among the other top 10 picks, but I've always been a Mario Party fan. And I really think the Lego Party did a lot to innovate and rethink the conventional Mario Party structure into something that I thought was really fun and inventive, and was so easy to just put on with friends and fool around with, have a good time. It's been a party staple since it came out for me. So love Lego Party. Number 9, The Root Trees Are Dead, which did make our site-wide top 10. This is a fantastic take on the Obra Dinn-like, I guess you would call it, but with a very 90s nostalgia, early internet infused detective vision that I thought was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed. At number 8, Octopath Traveler 0, and this is one that has really only risen in my estimates since then. I really think this is a solid follow-up to Octopath Traveler 2, what I think is one of the best turn-based RPGs to come out in the last few years. Octopath Traveler 0 really takes the structure of Champions of the Continent and other parts of Octopath and
forms it into a very memorable and enjoyable RPG. I've not reached the end yet. I've heard the ending is very, very good. Cannot wait to get there. Number 7, Demon School. I reviewed this one recently, gave it an 8, and I was really happy with it. I think it's got some rough edges for sure, but I think if you appreciate a game that feels like it was made for somebody who enjoys a certain type of game, and that game being a mixture of social sim management and tactics and just very nitty gritty, enjoying the craft of a good tactics game, Demon School really hits for that. Again, more of that early internet, turn of the 21st century, or 21st century nostalgia vibes. It works really, really well. Number 6, Trails in the Sky First Chapter, another game that has probably only risen in my estimates over the past few weeks. Really like this game. I love what Nihon Falcon did to take the original Trails in the Sky FC and update it while still maintaining so much of the original core of what this game is. In fact, it's similar to another game I left off my list because I thought it was too similar to when I originally played it, which is Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evil East Chronicles. But Trails in the Sky First Chapter and FF Tactics both this year really showed why preservation is important, and well done preservation can do so much. Number 5, a bit of a surprise maybe, Dynasty Warriors Origins. This came out at the start of the year and really stuck with me throughout it. I've been a Dynasty Warriors fan for a very long time, ever since probably 3, I think, on the PS2. And Dynasty Warriors Origins really, again, takes this conventional formula of what Dynasty Warriors is and twists it and tries something new with it. I compared it to the Legends Arceus of the Dynasty Warriors series, and I think in the same way, if you enjoy new original takes, or if you just want a bit more of a like story focused, drama forward version of Dynasty Warriors, or you just like the idea of a bunch of dudes running down a hill yelling and going to war and all that kind of stuff, the big battle scenes that you would see in something like Lord of the Rings, I think you would really enjoy Dynasty Warriors Origins. Number 4, Seance of Blake Manor. This is a very mystery-filled year for me. This was a real surprise for me at the end of the year too, but man, it really struck me. I think it's a really solid game when it comes to the tone and the mood. I think the mysteries are really, really good. I think the setup is really incredible, where you're trying to go to this manor and discover why someone has disappeared and ultimately figure out what is going on and how to prevent potential tragedy from befalling everyone. But it's also deeply rooted in its local mythology and in the time and in the period that it's in. It's a solid period piece, mystery, drama. Really, really good. Cannot recommend it enough. Into the top 3. Number 3, Blueprints. Really don't feel like I don't need to explain this one. Blueprints absolutely absorbed me when it came out. I loved House of Leaves when I read it while I was growing up, and this really felt like a really solid understanding of the appeal of the shifting house as a format, as a medium, but then also came up with some really, really cool ideas about what to do with that mystery and how even mystery itself, the format of a mystery, can be a really effective storytelling technique for what you're trying to do with these characters. Number 2, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Don't really need explanation here either. Fantastic RPG. Really love what the team did. I think a few reservations about stuff that's been coming out recently aside, I really, really am happy with Clair Obscur. And it really, I think my takeaway is that if a lot of people try Clair Obscur as their first RPG and discover they love it, that's fantastic. There's always games like this, like Persona 5, Final Fantasy X, going all the way back, where it's somebody's first RPG, and I just hope it's not their last. Clair Obscur is, I think, a good gateway into what is a wonderful genre. Number 1, Sickos. It's time. The 100-line Last Defense Academy. I love this game. I think this is the game that I kind of finished my time with, but only sort of continued to grow to the point that I keep wanting to go back to it every couple weeks and just dig back in and spend more time in it. It's an incredible collaboration between Kodaka and Uchikoshi, the makers of Danganronpa and Zero Escape, that mixes timeline bending adventure novel formats with tactical battles in a way that feels very, very narrowly sighted in on my particular favorite things in video games, but then feels so innovative in how it approaches those endings. It's not just content for content's sake. There's glut here. There's a sheer glut of content, but it is all meaningfully fleshed out and given care and attention and just really built out into this wide world of what could happen within the storytelling format. You can see all these different authors and developers on the team coming together to create all these amazing stories within the 100 line that all branch out from all these different options and decisions that you're making throughout the game. It's really wonderful. To say too much might spoil some of its better twists and surprises. So suffice to say, I think if you've ever played a Danganronpa or a Zero Escape, or you like tactics games, or you really just want to play a game that you play it and you say, I've never played anything like this. This is so completely outside my wheelhouse, but I cannot believe the things they're pulling off. This is going to be worth your time, worth your investment. I firmly think it's one of the best things that's come out this year. Definitely my number one. That's my top 10 list. Running it back down: Lego Party, Root Trees Are Dead, Octopath Traveler 0, Demon School, Trails in the Sky First Chapter, Dynasty Warriors Origins, Seance of Blake Manor, Blueprints, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, and the 100 line Last Defense Academy. Honorable mention to Final Fantasy Tactics: The Evil East Chronicles, which I did not consider because it was a remaster. I've played that game before. I wanted to shout out new stuff to me, but FF Tactics also very good this year. Go check it out. Go check out everybody else's top 10s. Hope you enjoyed this. Later.
Kyle Hilliard, executive editor for Game Informer magazine here. Hello. Thank you for sticking with Game Informer this year, or sticking back to us after we reappeared. It's very much appreciated, and thank you for listening to this end of the year podcast. Like many editors here on this very podcast that you're listening to, I'm going to go through my personal top 10 of 2025 and tell you why I put stuff where I put it. My number 10 is Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, which came out very early in the year. And it is one that, like, you know, I had the potential to have forgotten by the end of the year rolled around, but I really liked that game a lot. I am new to the Like a Dragon series. I watched my wife play a lot of 7 and was charmed by it, but then I played The Man Who Forgot His Name, and I played 8, and then I played Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii because I wanted to know about it's Majima, right? It's been a while. It's silly, yeah, Goro Majima. And I, because I wasn't really familiar with that character. I was like, well, this is great. He has amnesia. This is a great jumping on point for this character. And I just found it to be a fun, sort of straightforward action game, and it had this really hilarious, unexpected Bachelor, The Bachelor, like the reality TV show section that I was just like laughing so hard at, and it was one of my favorite moments of the year, and I just really had a great time with it. I'm really looking forward to what's next for Yakuza. I count myself as a proper fan at this point. My number 9 is Dispatch, which surprised me because I am not a big fan of like choice-driven games, sort of narrative choice-driven games. I'm not a big fan of more passive experiences where it's like you're not really engaging with a game that much. You're more just like letting things happen and making choices, which is like, it's just not my style of game that I enjoy. But Dispatch just really clicked for me because I liked the animation so much. I thought it just looked great, and that was enough to get me in, compared to something like Telltale, which, as much as there's a lot of love and affection for, Telltale games of the past out there, the visuals and the animation were never one of the sort of highlights of that series, where Dispatch I just thought was like a great looking game that would have been just a great looking show on its own, and then you actually play it and there's a lot of fun writing and fun moments, and I really enjoyed it. It really surprised me. It's not a game that I expected would grab me, but I played each episode as they came out, or 2 episodes a week as they were coming in real time, and I really had a great time with it. My number 8 is Lumines Arise. I love Lumines. I love Tetris Effect. I I was a PSP early adopter, so of course you're kind of like, you are automatically a Lumines fan when that happens. If you had a PSP early in its lifespan, you kind of like are legally obligated to be a Lumines fan, and I was. And then when it got re-released on Switch a couple years ago, I got really back into it again, and Lumines Arise was a great sort of follow-up to Tetris Effect that really got me back into, you know, that style of puzzle game. It is, in terms of, you know, pieces dropping down the well styles of puzzle game, it's Tetris is my number one, as it is for most people, and then Lumines is like an easy number two for me, and then you know, everything after that, there's a pretty big wide gap, you know, to my number three, which I don't even know what it is, but yeah, I really like Lumines a lot. Number 7 for me, Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, a game whose narrative was a little underwhelming for me by the end, but is still kind of this beautiful, undeniable, strange, fun experience that I really liked and like was eager to see to the end when I was playing it. I certainly had some sort of like qualms with the ending and like things that I just was kind of underwhelmed by, but like, yeah, existing in that world is a lot of fun, and learning more about how it works and what it is great. And you know, I don't know that I need a third Death Stranding necessarily, but if there is one, I will absolutely be there to play. I really enjoy those games. And hey, speaking of Hideo Kojima, my number 6 is Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. I just love Metal Gear Solid 3. That's like an all-timer for me. I don't know. I'm not ranking my top 10 favorite games of all time here. But, and I don't know if Metal Gear Solid 3 would make it on that list now I'm thinking about it, because I would probably put 2 there first. But I'm getting sidetracked here. I really liked Snake Eater. I loved revisiting that game, right? I loved revisiting Metal Gear Solid 2 this year, or excuse me, Metal Gear Solid 3 this year. And I thought the changes were subtle and really smart. And it was just a reminder for me, like, that it's like, I just really love that game. And it's really crazy and weird, but it also remains fun to play and fun to sneak around and do sneaky things. And like, the fact that they didn't really make a lot of huge changes to the gameplay is really telling about like how that game stands up all these years later. I think if someone is like interested in playing Metal Gear Solid today in 2025, hey, I've heard about this series, I've always wanted to try it. I think Snake Eater, I think Delta Snake Eater is my number one recommendation, you know, just for all the narrative reasons, and also it feels like a contemporary game, it looks like a contemporary game. Yeah, I really like that game a lot. Number 5, Blue Prince for me. I really did like Blue Prince. I wasn't quite over the moon for it as many were, but that's not to say like I didn't like it, right? It's number 5 on my list. Me and my wife played it together, took copious notes. She set up this whole thing on her iPad where we were able to take notes, and we worked together on it. And it was really like a fun and rewarding experience. And there's nothing like it, really. It's very unique. And, you know, I was thinking about this. I think I mentioned it even we were talking about it on MinMax when we were doing our end of the year discussion. So I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But, you know, something like Vampire Survivors comes out and it's like, wow, this is amazing. I love this. And I can't wait to see what other people take with this idea and make their own thing with it. And Blueprints is a game that like feels unique, but I don't see it as being something that's going to inspire a lot of other game developers to try their take on Blueprint's mechanics, because it's just so specific and unique and built around this very specific idea, and I really admire it for that. I found some of the puzzles a little unsatisfying because of the random nature of things, in the sense that it's like you would know, you know, I was later in the game, my wife and I were kind of running out of puzzles to solve, and so we were, you know, there was only like 1 or 2 things we could do on a run, and it would be kind of frustrating when it's like, well, we just didn't get what we needed that run, so I don't know, I guess we can walk around a little more, but we've seen all these rooms, we know it's in all these rooms, you know, that kind of thing got a little frustrating for me near the end. I don't really like random elements when it comes to a puzzle game, but I really like Blueprints, and it's the kind of game that you dream about and the kind of game that you think about when you're not playing it. Number 4 for me is interesting to me. It's Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, a game that I think was kind of maybe a little underwhelming, and for people, I kind of came out on the higher end of it, I think, and people, other reviewers and things like that. Not that has, an impact on how I dictate my personal list or even my reviews, but I really had a great time with Metroid Prime 4. I feel like it met the expectations I had in place for Metroid Prime, and it just delivered this really mechanically sound game that was just really well designed to explore that world and be in that world. I really had a good time with it, and I miss it. It's one of those games that I beat it, and then I did beat it again on the harder difficulty because I was a little bummed that I couldn't go back to my save to get 100% of everything. So I started over, but I was pretty quickly, I was I'm back in this world and I'm having a great time. I like riding the motorcycle around in the open area. I like the design of each of the sections. It's a really good Metroid Prime game. I really had a great time with it. It's my number 4. My number 3 is another Nintendo game. It's Donkey Kong Bonanza. It is, I was really liking Donkey Kong Bonanza a lot throughout the course of the whole game. I was this is really fun. This is really bombastic, and it's fun to destroy things, and the platforming is fun. But the last quarter of the game is where I really fell in love with it, because the deeper you go into the world, the weirder it gets. And then I won't spoil it or anything, but the end really appealed to me and the things that I like about the Donkey Kong franchise. And I had a great time with it, and it's one of those games that I beat and have been playing throughout the year to try and get every banana. I'm making pretty good progress there. I had a great time with Donkey Kong Bonanza. I like where the Donkey Kong franchise is right now as a result of that game. My number 2 is Ghost of Yotei, a game that I adored. I love Sucker Punch. I feel like Sucker Punch, they're the creators of Sly Cooper and the infamous franchise, and of course Ghost of Tsushima, now Ghost of Yotei. I feel like despite being sort of a first-party developer for Sony that has made some really recognizable and beloved games, I still think they're underrated as designers and what they pull off technically. Ghost of Yotei is just this wonderful experience where you can just fast travel everywhere instantly and explore this amazing world. I think it's one of my favorite open world games of all time. I was sort of thinking through it, and I was I would put Breath of the Wild up there, I would put Tears of the Kingdom up there, I would put Red Dead 2 up there, I would put GTA 5 up there, but I think Ghost of Yotei would also be sort of among that top 5, top 10 list. I really love exploring the world. I love how quickly you can move through the world. I like how there's so few barriers to you just going around and having fun. The combat is fun. And then on top of all that, the story just really absolutely worked on me. I was totally engaged. I had moments of tears multiple times throughout the game. I beat it and I immediately was looking for excuses to stay in that world. I did not want to put Ghost of Yotei down. I wanted to do everything that it would allow me to do, and I think it's better than Ghost of Tsushima. I think it's probably Sucker Punch's best game, and that's saying a lot for a studio whose games I really like a lot. So that was my number 2 this year was Ghost of Yotei. And my number 1, is expected. Arguably, it won Game Informer's Game of the Year, and that's of course it's Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which is this just stirring, beautiful, unexpected game that just you don't get these kinds of games very often. We all saw the initial trailers for Clair Obscur, and at least I was that looks really cool. That looks amazing. It could go either way. This is an unknown, team. I don't know anything about this world that they've created, but truly within half an hour of playing that game, I would be shocked if you weren't totally on board and wanted to see what happened next. I was really enamored with it throughout the whole experience, and I thought the ending was really thoughtful and interesting, and there are emotional moments in it, and then the combat is just super fun. I really am a sucker for an RPG that has timed button press mechanics in it. Like Mario RPG or Sea of Stars recently. I really want to be engaged during combat, and there's a lot of classic Final Fantasy, Persona, those kinds of metaphor last year, a game that I liked a lot that just the combat feels very thoughtful, but it's still a bit passive. You're still just selecting something and watching it play out. Where with games like Clair Obscur, where you're sort of actively engaged in the combat that while it's happening, I just find so much more interesting and just really makes me want to sort of pick a fight with every enemy that I encounter in the game. So yeah, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Really love that game. And I'm kind of even like missing it now as I talk about it at the end of the year here, where I'm kind of like, is it time to play through that again or start over, or maybe just pick up my save file where I have lots of more stuff left to do that I just never really explored too much. It might be time for that. But yeah, it's a lot of people's game of the year, and maybe that's like, boring, I guess you could say, but they made an amazing experience, so you got to give it up for that. And like, I really love Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and I'm really excited to see what Sandfall does next. I don't really need a Clair Obscur sequel. I just want to know, what they're excited to work on, and I want to see what that is. But yeah, honorary mention to Silent Hill F. That was a game that I kind of finished up late in the year that I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it, but the further I get away from it, the more I like it. So like, I would maybe consider that my honorary number 11 is Silent Hill F. Yeah, and then there's a lot of other good games that I like this year too. But you can see our write-ups in the latest issue of Game Informer magazine. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast this year and hanging out with us while we're getting the magazine back up and running again. I speak for myself. I think I speak for everyone here at Game Informer when I say that I'm really excited for the future and feel like we're going to be able to stick around for a while, which is exciting. I want Game Informer to be around for a while, and I hope you do too. Thank you so much, and hey, have a great 2026, and the rest of 2025 as well. Thank you so much. Bye.